I'm about to metaphorically show you up my skirt here, Rob, because there are a lot of people out there who think I'm really clever.
Yeah.
And they go, how does he know that?
There's one here who knows better.
Yeah. How does he know that the song came into the charts? Well, I'm about to reveal all, because what's this thing I'm waving around in my hand? Describe
It's
it,
a
please,
book.
Rob.
It's a big book. It's called The Book, and it's been written by a gentleman by the name of Stephen Gaines. And what a coincidence.
Yep.
Again.
716 pages of Stephen's life is in this. Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning, guys.
How are you travelling? You got Neil here, the other one being Robert, who you've already had a chat to. Well, here's the test. How good's your book? That was a song called How Do You Mend a Broken Heart by the Bee Gees. Off you go.
Righto. Well, it was part of their second coming, if you like. Three brothers. Well, at that stage it was three brothers. But for a little while in the early 70s, Robin took a sabbatical. And How Can You Mend is kind of it's the second song after he came back to the fold. Followed Lonely Days, and then they had a top 2 hit with How Can You Mend, followed by My World and Run to Me, and both of those ended up top 3.
So this is what must be like over the breakfast table at the Scaines household. That a song comes on the radio and Rob and Steve goes, let me tell you about that. Off the top of my head, Steve, that would have been on the Spin label, am I right?
Yeah, they got signed in Australia to Spin, which was a Sydney-based label out of Festival Records, those of you that remember record companies. But they were linked in with Robert Stigwood, and he'd got them signed to Polydor in the mid-'60s, and that's why they went over back to England. About late '66 they went over there, and basically everywhere else in the world, their material came out on Polydor, which was a phonogram label, but because Festival had locked them in for years and years, they were on Spin until '76 here.
Off the top of my head, I think that was release EK 4253 without... I'm just guessing at this stage that was the label number. I could be wrong. Or you are in your book, one or the other. Steve...
That's exactly right.
Maybe I've got it sitting in front of me because mine arrived in the mail yesterday, and yes, Rob, I did pay for it. Right?
That's beautiful.
It's an excellent book, and it's a very limited edition. You've got to get in early if you want to buy one. You would do 500 each time, don't you? And that's right?
Well, I normally do 500, but, this day and age with costs and what have you, I've dropped it back to 400. And it's only been sort of kicking around now for a month, this brand new one. And guys, it's phenomenal the way it's started to move. I've sold a third of them already.
Now, impressively, this is edition 11, Rob. So I have a 7, an 8, a 9, a 10, and now an 11. And you'd think, well, how does the charts in 1962 change, in the 3 or 4 years since the last edition came out? It does, because Steve does a whole lot more work on it. But before we talk too much about this version, take us back to A, how, B, why, C, are you crazy, setting out and doing this thing in the first place?
Well, it's a labour of love. Basically, what I was doing in one of my incarnations of working life was I was involved in calculating the weekly top 40 charts. And that ended up being for, can I say another network on this?
I don't know that there is another network, is there? Yes, you can.
Network, let's say.
No, you can name them. Go on.
All right, Austereo, so people might know that name. And what we were doing is we were ringing record shops around the country for every week for their sales, and one of the guys that owned a record shop, or ran a record shop at that stage, was a guy called Jim Barnes.
Not that one.
So, not Mr. Kaysan, another Jim Barnes. And he'd put out a book called The Book, Top 40 Research, with his good friend, also another record shop manager. And that was the first edition, and that came out in about 84, I think. Anyway, I was talking to Jim, and he said, there's this thing called a computer. Do you reckon you could computerise this for us? Because it started out the product of pages in an IBM typewriter.
Wow.
All that way back. So that was the first edition. So I got involved in the second one, computerised the thing. I didn't know if I could do it, but ended up 9 months later. Sounds like a pregnancy, doesn't it? But
that's it.
9 months later, out came the book, the second edition, and we've been going ever since from there. It takes about 20 minutes a week to update it with the latest charts, but then it's manipulating all the figures and getting them typeset and getting them printed. So there's a fair bit of work involved just before the book comes out.
And when you say manipulated, of course, you mean from a typeset perspective as distinct from falsifying the numbers.
Oh, correct.
Yeah, no, we just need to clarify that.
I'm intrigued about the person or persons as a collective that have been mentioned most, and I would have thought the Bee Gees as a band themselves, but also the incredible amount of work that they did writing songs for other people. Are they somewhere near Lennon, McCartney, Elton John? Who has produced the most contributions in your book, do you reckon? Or is that something you could work on next?
Well, there's a couple of big artists, but it depends on which era you're looking at. I mean, if you go to the Perry Como page, you've got a page of him. Doris Day's all over it, Rosemary Clooney, but then we can move forward, and Cliff Richard is quite prominent.
As a songwriter and performer?
As a performer, in terms of songwriter, I haven't actually counted up.
Because you think about the body work the Bee Gees produced and the number of hits they had, but Barry Gibb, he keeps popping up in writing songs for so many other people. They would have had a lot of fingerprints in your book, I'd imagine.
There'd be a lot more people, I reckon, who... Togo, yeah.
And guys, what I do in the book is I put annotations on particular songs. So, for instance, if you turn to Islands in the Stream, you'll have a bit of the credit written by the R&M Gibb.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So get down that way. I haven't actually tallied the total number, but...
There's your next project, buddy.
Maybe.
And I think the important thing to realise too in this edition, I think it's fair to say that in previous editions, the performance of a song in New South Wales tended to dominate a little bit because that's where Steve lives. He lives in New South Wales. But this time round, you've gone a little bit over the top, have you not, and spent a bit of time in libraries?
Yeah, this is the crazy part now.
Yeah, I thought there was the crazy bit was going to come sooner or later.
Yeah, what I've managed to do in the last few years is I've visited state libraries around the place. Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney. I've yet to go to Brisbane and Perth, but I've got a lot of data from those places, and I've got all the Tasmanian data as well. So I've actually gone back and recalculated the weekly top 40s. And what happened in the 60s was there was a bit of parochialism, and if you were a Melbourne artist, Melbourne Radio liked you, but nowhere else did. Well, maybe Adelaide, maybe Tassie. If you were a Sydney artist, Sydney Radio was all over you, but and a little bit of Queensland, but nowhere near anywhere in Victoria and vice versa. So what we've got now with the book is we've got a true reflection, if you like, of success based on states where it was played, coupled with demographics, and you end up with a national top 40.
And a massive job for me to do at some stage, because the 2,500 songs that are sitting in my library, all of which have got... Hey, hang on. The 5,300 songs that are in my library here, each of which have the Steve Skeins top chart type position against them, now has to be updated, and thank you very much.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You have to lock yourself away in a cave for about a week.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of fun. But the really good thing when you do that, oh, that's a song I hadn't heard for a while, so there's a bit of that going on. The other thing I find fascinating, and I'm assuming you still have access to it, was Steve and I met at Steve's home, and he took me around to his library of singles. Have you still got that going?
I still do. Haven't been updating it so much now because... the convenience of a CD.
Yeah, a bit hard to buy a Taylor Swift 7-inch, although you can pay $100 and buy a 12-inch.
Well, that's right.
Which I did the other day for someone.
That's called a 33, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Don't cross the lingo over. 45 and 33, and then I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Roughly speaking, how many singles have you got?
Oh, now you put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Let me answer that by saying how many pieces of music I've got, including CDs and albums and what have you. Last count was about 35,000.
Oh, my goodness. That's a very big house, Stephen.
It is a big house, yeah.
Yeah, and as people in his family leave home, for example, I know that Steve's daughter has been married recently and presumably doesn't live there anymore. There's not a bedroom gone.
That's right.
Another library.
A couple of times in my previous life at a previous radio station, I would have someone ring me and say, "Can you find me, this song and play this on the radio?" And I'd go, "Yeah, righto." So we would look around, and the last port of call, you'd ring Steve, and he'd go, "Yeah, duh."
Yeah, that actually happened quite a bit. Well, not so much nowadays because people in record companies are going through the mill and retiring or what have you, and people that are taking their place don't really have a knowledge of what was going on.
I'm tipping you've been asked this quite a lot, and you're talking about who's your favourite child, but have you got 3 favourites out of that 35,000 collections in your house?
Here we go.
I warned you.
Question. It's so difficult to pinpoint favourite songs because there are so many that I like, but I guess it's that 1968, 69 period that is my go-to. Love Child by the Supremes. That was great.
Yep.
That sort of twigged me into listening to music. I do like the Four Tops version of If I Were a Carpenter because it's just atmospherically wonderful. And little song about a busker called Green Tambourine, which...
Yeah.
Lemon Pipers?
There was,
track.
There's some beautiful, beautiful songs.
You know what we're going to ask Rob in a moment.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful song. That was about 68, wasn't it?
Now, what's the link between that song and the Bee Gees?
Yeah. Go back a year, but you're right, Ben.
There you go, 67. It probably took me a while to wake up.
There was a link with that song and the Bee Gees.
Is there?
Mm-hmm.
Did they write it as well?
No. Massachusetts was written as an answer song, effectively, to San Francisco. Everyone's going to San Francisco. No, we're going to Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and do you know, guys, that Massachusetts was first offered to the Seekers?
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And imagine Judith singing that. Would have been fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keith Potka, friend of the show. We'll talk to him next time we're talking to him.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about covers, and some songs are done so well they should never, ever be allowed to be covered. But there are so many great covers done, and you already mentioned some there. Is there a particular favourite original that has been covered, but you think, no, the original's the one?
There always is. The one that I've come across most recently is the original version of Suspicious Minds. And that is originally done by the songwriter, a guy called Mark James, who was a Polish expat songwriter in America. He also wrote Hooked on a Feeling and Always on My Mind.
Ooga chugga, ooga chugga.
So he can sit back and rip off his royalties, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, his version of Suspicious Minds is a bit more soulful, let's say, than Elvis.
My goodness, there is a statement. Put that on that's the statement of the day. More soulful than a... If you're listening, Grant Bench, pick yourself up off the floor. Yeah. That is a big statement.
Grant hosts our show For the Love of Elvis.
Oh, right.
So that might give you some insight into his feelings about Elvis Presley. I reckon from a cover version perspective, and Rob has heard me say this so many times, I don't think you can go past Crying by Don McLean. It is just a wonderful, wonderful version of that song.
Yep, I'd drink to that.
Yeah, well, you and I would drink to anything.
And again, to have someone top Roy Orbison, that's a fair effort as well.
Mm. Yep, sure is.
It was funny, there's a radio show in Melbourne that's on one of the commercials, which we won't name, but the host of that is a friend of the show. We have him on here a bit, Ross Stevenson, and they have a segment called Top 7 at 7, and he made the ridiculous statement the other day, but you never hear songs by Roy Orbison covered, do you? The next day there was a Top 7 at 7, covers of Roy Orbison songs. And he sat through the whole thing going, yeah, fair enough, yeah. No.
Yeah, he must have forgot about Pretty Woman too.
Yeah, absolutely. That was Working for the Man. Was another one that they brought up. Blue by You by Linda Ronstadt and one or two others. Yeah, it's just a funny thing.
There's a wormhole to go down there.
Absolutely. We might do that one day. Hey, Steve, we are now going to throw the spotlight back on Rob because he asked you the hard question. Right, Rob, what are your top 3?
Top 3 what? Songs ever?
Yeah.
I said, Neil Diamond remains at number one. I really do find that I'm more and more engaging with Jimmy Barnes or Cold Chisel, Working Class Man. When I hear it, it just makes me feel good and an Australian. Third, very good point. Leave it with me for a sec.
We haven't got time to ask me, of course, because that'd be just difficult.
Yes.
I think I played one of mine earlier today.
Did you?
Yeah, but God only knows what it's called.
God only knows, righto.
What a magnificent piece of music that is.
Yeah, and you know, in the rejigged of the charts, it peaked at 29 now.
Really? Because it peaked at 2 in your book, as I recall.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, in most places.
I'll have to write a computer program that says, if it drops, we'll leave it where it was, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poetic license, you can do that.
That's it. Because when Steve and I met, and I had some very rudimentary recording equipment. We must do this again at some stage, where we set ourselves the target of the top 5 songs of the 60s, the 70s and the 80s, and I played them on consecutive weeks. And the thing I really liked about the response I got from Steve was not necessarily his favourite song, but the song that either evoked a memory or the song that had a good story associated with it. And a lot of the stories that I'll tell about the song afterwards, to me, that's what makes the song as much as the actual tune itself.
I got it, and Grant will be impressed, of course. American Trilogy live version at Hawaii, that's number 3.
That was by a bloke called Elvis, was it?
A bloke called Elvis.
Yeah, okay.
That was pretty special.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
That makes the hair on the back of the neck still stand up. Love it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to throw Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits in there. That's got to be in there as well. And by definition, it'd have to be a Beatles song because of my commitment to that organisation. I suspect in my top 30 songs of the Beatles of all time, number 1 was a song called Something, ironically not written by the people who wrote most of the music.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
What's the quirkiest thing you found when you were searching, Steve? The thing that made you go, oh, really?
There's a radio program in Melbourne called Radio Gaga that I host. That was quirky.
Yeah. Well, the funniest thing was to do with our typesetting. And for a couple of editions, the Ernie hit, Rubber Ducky. Now think about your keyboard. Think about where the I and the U are.
Yes.
So the first I in Ducky.
Oh, yes, excellent. Yeah.
And it stayed there for 3 years.
and everyone saw it and thought, no, I'm not going to tell him.
I've got no computer skills at all. I'm going to have to go home and look at the keyboard before I get this.
Yeah, just be careful what you're typing.
Yeah, that's it. Yes. No, it could have been worse, I suspect, if it had been the D, because that's immediately adjacent to the F. So
yes, it could have been.
It could have been a lot worse. Steve, we probably should let you go and do whatever you're doing on a Saturday morning. But before we do, we need to tell people where you can get hold of this book, and hurry before stocks run out. Literally.
Yeah.
Now, I notice we should pay tribute to, this one is the first edition's come out with just your name on the front. Sadly, Jim passed away.
Jim did pass away suddenly 2 years ago, yes.
So this one comes out under Stephen's name.
If not for anything else, it's a bit of a tribute to him because it was his baby right from the word go.
Yeah. And am I right in saying that this is the first one where you've been Stephen Scaines rather than Steve?
No,
I thought you had Steve on a lot of them, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think I'm the name my mother calls me on all of them.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Scaines.
Yeah, that's it.
So tell us about, it's called The Book. It must take a while to come up with that. Top 40 research from covers 1950 to 22, this one. So covers 72 years of charts. Yeah. Where can people find it?
Well, it's really the only place to grab it is from the website we've got. Can I give you the address?
You bet you can, because Rob's just getting his wallet out as we speak. All
right, so we've got the 3 W's in front, and then top40book.com.au. Now that's TOP40 book.
Yep. Okay, so top40book.com.au, and it's this edition, as I said, it's kind of like a Port Adelaide teal colour.
It is.
As a special tribute to our Hawthorn friends. I played Never Tear Us Apart before. Is that rude?
That is rude because I guess they won last night, but you know.
Yeah, no, but it's a bit of fun.
I won't be talking about that team.
No, well, you certainly will be talking about them next week, I suspect.
Yes, their demise. Oh, should...
Yeah, you say that, yeah. a touch of the Jack Ginnemans about you. Steve is mad Sydney
word of
supporter.
the year, of course.
Do you remember what happened the last time Port Adelaide come to Sydney to play you, Steve?
I do. I wasn't there.
Yeah. Wasn't his fault. I don't recall.
You've got a bit of improving to do before you can start strutting at this stage, I must remind you.
We've got some big guns back. I think that was part of the problem.
Yeah, well, good luck. It's going to be a fascinating little contest, that one.
Sure will.
Well, Stephen, I wish you the best for that game next week, and hope that the results fall to a Brisbane-Sydney grand final. This book is just phenomenal.
Really good.
It's great.
Thanks,
So,
guys.
do yourself a favour to do it. What's it, about $100 or something, isn't it, to buy?
Yeah, it's 98.
Yeah.
There's plenty of info in there, folks, and if you're a music aficionado, and David Barnes, if you're listening, I imagine you'd want one in the library.
They are superb. As I said, I've got 5 editions or 6 editions now, and every one I get, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. And if it wasn't for Steve, the stuff I produce on this radio program would be even worse than this now.
Stephen, thank you so much. It has been a joy to chat, and always impressed with people like you who just make this a lifelong passion, and you've clearly done that.
Rob. Yeah, it keeps Mr. Zymer away from the door.
All the best to Elle. Top40book.com.au. Stephen Skeins, the Top 40 Research Book. Great to chat, Steve. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, it was good to chat to you after, 3 or 4 years now?
Yeah, probably the last time the book came out.
Yeah,
probably.
Next time up the Central Coast, we'll sit down and have that beer.
That'd be great.
Thanks,
Cheers, mate.
Stephen. All the best.
Thanks, guys.